What do you do when you try to plan for the worst and then the worst happens? It's been a rough week. I'll tell you all about it coming up next. Welcome back to Ready Budget Go. My name is Drew, and on this channel we talk about cash budgeting, saving money, and achieving our financial goals. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please consider subscribing, hitting the like button, and leaving a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. So this is the weekly budget check-in video, and it's been an incredibly difficult week. Those of you who follow the news or who maybe have relatives who live in the Pacific Northwest know that we got hit by what's called a bomb cyclone. I'm not a meteorologist, so I won't go into all the detail, but basically it's a storm that involves a lot of heavy rain and hurricane force winds. So that hit my area, and I lost power on Tuesday evening, and I didn't get it back until sometime on, well, actually, I don't know when, because I wasn't here when it came back on. So um, I had essentially had to leave town unexpectedly right away, last minute, because there was no electricity. I lost all of the food in my refrigerator and freezer, and I incurred a lot of expenses that I wasn't planning on. But thankfully, I have an emergency fund. If I hadn't had an emergency fund, and if I had a lot of credit card debt or consumer debt, something like this could have brought me to my knees. Now, fortunately, it was only a few days, and the expenses that I incurred, while high, weren't too bad. And I'll go over that in some detail later. But ultimately, I'm really happy that I had the account, the money available, and that I was able to weather the storm, literally and figuratively. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about how I did it and what that did to my budget. So here's my expense tracker where I write down all of the expenses that I incur over the course of the month. There are two things that I don't track here. I don't track my bills, which are tracked on my monthly budget, but I don't track them as part of my variable expenses because by and large they're fixed and I know what they are. I also don't track any of the cash I spend. As far as I'm concerned, the cash allowance that I give myself every week is a sunk cost. I give myself $100 in cash, and that's mostly for incidental things or to places where I can't use a credit card or don't want to use a credit card for whatever reason. If there's any money left in cash at the end of the week, other than the $1 bills, then I will deduct that from the total spend. But you'll notice here I have two sets of numbers for this week. This covers the 15th through the 22nd, but I actually pushed it to the 23rd because of the emergency. When I'm in emergency, the budget goes out the window, and I'm just trying to get through day to day as best I can. So I'm going to reconcile the budget, but at the same time, there's going to be an emergency spend element to it as well, and I'll show you how I factor that in. So before the storm hit, those expenses are color-coded in blue. Now, these would have already put me over with my cash spend for the week, but I would have been on a good path to come in on budget or just under or just over for the month. I would have been able to either cash flow it if it was over or stick a few more bucks into savings or into my checking account buffer if it was under. But that didn't happen because of the storm. And so there's essentially two different things that I'm going to do with this set of expenses here. The first part, which is highlighted in blue, and I know you probably can't see it very well. I wasn't thinking that the blue would be that dark. So I went over it with a black Sharpie, and it's still probably not all that legible, but I will tell you that the total regular expenses here were $167.67. I would add to that the $100 in cash that I had given myself for $267.67, and then I had $30 in cash left over, which gives me a grand total of $237.67. So I'm going to flip back over to my budget sheet, and I'm going to input that for the third week, because that would have been the number or close to it, but then of course we had the emergency. So click my pen on, $237.67. Now, going back to the other sheet, I also had these expenses, which totaled to $552.05 in emergency spend. I didn't count every single transaction because there's not really anything to be learned in that. It's an emergency, so it's not something that I can go back and say, okay, well, how could I have budgeted better? It's the nature of an emergency is that you can't budget for it. All you can do is save for it so that if an emergency does happen, you have the funds available to deal with it. So all of this emergency spend, which is for food, transportation, and a hotel, and another expense here that I'll talk about in just a moment, was $552.05. Now, this last expense here, which is books, I went to my favorite bookstore because I got out of town and my favorite bookstore is in another city. And so I went there and I spent about 31 bucks. And for me, I just needed to do something for myself, for my mental health, for just to give my mind something else to focus on rather than the constant fight or flight panic. When's the power going to come back on? Where am I going? Where am I staying? What am I doing? So doing something like that was a calming experience for me, and that's $31 well spent. I don't regret that at all, and I'm counting that as part of the emergency. If I hadn't been in an emergency, I wouldn't have spent the money. So where does that go? We'll go back to the budget, and I'll show you where I'm going to stick it in. Okay, so here we are back at the budget overview for the month, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to stick in all the bills that came out last week, because emergency or not, you still got bills, or at least I do. So the first thing that came out was the savings for my emergency fund, which I had budgeted $200. That's what I planned on, and I actually decided to up that to $205, and I may just sort of slowly, incrementally increase this until I hit my target. But for this one, I put in 205, so that's what I'm going to write in here. And you may think, well, you probably took it right back out because you had an emergency, but I actually took that money from somewhere else. So I'm going to leave it as is, as $205. I also had the Affirm bill, $42.79. This is a bill that I pay out of money that my company gives me for my cell phone. So this is the cell phone hardware component. There's also visible here, which is the monthly plan component of it. So hardware was paid, and then the credit card annual fee hit, and that will be something that will also be important when talking about the emergency. So everything else should come in the next week, but for now, that takes care of the bills. So coming over here, I already updated with my weekly spend, and I'm over again. Knew I was going to be over regardless, but I was trying to essentially do 2 weeks of grocery shopping in one, and it turned out that I shouldn't have, because all that money went in the trash because the groceries spoiled when we lost power. But be that as it may, the money was spent, so it goes into the budget. Stockpiles, I still have money set aside for Black Friday. I'm not going to change that. Black Friday is still going to happen. I'm still going to exchange gifts with people. Where I took the money out is from my Roth contribution. Now, if you watched my last weekly update, you'll remember that I sent the money over to my brokerage. And right after it hit my brokerage account, I realized that there was this storm coming. So instead of contributing it to my IRA, I just left it in my cash account. And then when I realized that I was going to be without power for several days because the utility told us we weren't going to get it back for some time, then I actually transferred that money back. So the contribution to the Roth is going to be a 0 for this month. I'm going to take the emergency spend out of here, and then the leftover I will roll over into a December contribution. But for now, I just need to kind of let the dust settle, get through the rest of November, and then come December, I will still try to hopefully either fully fund my Roth IRA for the year or get close to it. You'll also remember, if you watched the last video, that I did put on my tracker, and I'll flip over to that briefly here. I did put on my tracker 9 more $100 essentially sloths for my sloth IRA. I put a note in here that I actually took that money back out. So essentially I owe the tracker $900. It's sort of like an IOU, just because I had every intention of putting that in my Roth IRA when I sent it to the brokerage. And then because Mother Nature had a cow, that didn't happen. So back over to the budget. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write in the amount of the emergency. It's not savings, it's not an extra debt payment, but it is impacting this part of the budget, so it makes sense to me to put it in here. So I'm going to write in 20 to 23 because that was the rough length of the emergency. We actually lost power on the 19th, I think, but it's academic. The point is that it was the rough duration of the emergency. And we are going to write 0 because that was the plan. But then the spend was $552.05. So that'll stay in here for now, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the month. Hopefully no more emergencies. There's one other thing that I want to touch on real quick before I go on to the next section and stuff the Letterbucks, and that is that this hotel line here in the emergency part of the expense tracker was $206.83. That's for one night. That was the first night when I was looking for a hotel near me, and I found one that I could actually get to that had electricity and rooms available. For the following 2 nights, because I spent a total of 3 nights in a hotel, for the following 2 nights, I actually went to a different city in a different state, as a matter of fact. And the reason why there's not another line here or why this number isn't higher is because I paid for those other 2 nights with reward points from one of my credit cards. I've talked about credit cards on this channel before. If I were carrying balances or if I owed money to anybody, then I wouldn't have those cards. The only reason why I have those cards is because I'm out of debt, other than my cell phone, which my company pays for, and it's a 0% interest rate anyway. But because I don't owe anybody on anything that I'm paying interest on, and because I will earn more rewards from the amount of money I'm going to spend anyway, I'm comfortable paying those annual fees. Like I said in the last video, I earn way more in rewards than what those fees will cost me, and this is an example of that. If I hadn't had those points to use, then I would have had to take money out of my emergency fund to cover 2 more nights, last minute, a weekend before a holiday, at a hotel. So just wanted to cover why this number isn't higher, and that your mileage may vary. So having an emergency fund is the most important thing. Being out of debt is important. If you don't have both of those in place, don't get a credit card with an annual fee on it, no matter what kind of rewards you're getting, because it won't be worth it. The amount you'll pay in interest will far exceed the amount of rewards that those cards will ever give you. But if you're out of debt, like I am, then using a credit card smartly to be able to be in a position where you can book last minute travel like this when an emergency happens can be helpful. Okay, so it's time for the Letterbucks challenge, and this is my favorite part of the week, where I take all of the $1 bills that I have gotten back as change over the course of the week, and I stuff them into different savings challenges, just fun ones that I'm saving up for. Well, I'm not really saving up. I'm just kind of stockpiling money for different things that are, I guess, frivolities or nice to haves. But it's something fun to do with the $1 bills, and they do add up over time. So let's take them out and see how many we have and in which denominations, and we will stuff them away. We'll start with binder number 1, which has the A through F in it, and it looks like I do have an A buck. When I say an A buck, what I'm talking about is the letter that is on the left-hand side of the bill. That refers to the branch of the Federal Reserve where this bill was distributed. So A is for Boston, Massachusetts, B is for New York, C is for Philadelphia, et cetera, et cetera. And so A, B's, and C's are pretty rare here, or they used to be. I've been getting a lot of them lately, but I think this week I'm back to getting more L's, which are the most common here. L's are distributed out of San Francisco, but I do have this one A buck, so we'll get it stuffed. And A's I am saving up for apothecary, which are things like candles and special soaps and anything like that, just to make yourself feel good. In here, I have two $15 placeholders, so I am just going to slide in the $1 bill. I will update the tracker later off camera, as I always do, just because it's, I don't know, not that entertaining to watch. If you like the trackers, you can get them in my Etsy shop. You can also get the placeholders in my Etsy shop. They're in $15 and $25 increments, and they're available as a physical item, so it'll be shipped to you, corners rounded, nice finish and everything. I don't sell the envelopes just because it's a lot of weeding, but if you really want a set, I am happy to do it. Just send me a message or leave me a comment or send me a message on Etsy. Either way works. So that was the A bucks. Let's move on to the Bs. I have at least one B, and it looks like, yep, just the one. So one B buck going in. B is for birthday, my birthday, which is in January. So this will likely be my birthday in 2026 that I'm accumulating money for. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but it'll be something fun. So I have a $15 placeholder, and then we have 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27 B-Bucks. And get those back in there. I see a C-Buck, and just the one C. C is for candy. When I go get my hair cut, which is about every 8 weeks, there is a candy shop near my barber, and they have some great stuff, so I treat myself. So there's a placeholder in here for 15, and then 3 more, so a total of $18 in the C-Bucks. There's at least one D. Let's see how many Ds we have. 1, 2, 3, 4 Ds. And D is for dog treats. There is one of my coworkers brings her dog into the office, and we all pitch in and buy her treats, so I contribute as well. So we've got 4, 5, is that 5? Yep, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, $15 in the Ds. So well on the way to getting a bag of good treats for her. E-Bucks is for education or books. I've got one this week. I spent money out of my emergency fund. Well, I spent money in emergency for books. I'm not taking it out of here just because that was part of the emergency, but I do enjoy buying books, so I'm saving up for those as well. E-Bucks, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, $11. And then the next one that I see is an L, which means everything else that I have is L. So we're going to skip ahead to the end of binder number 2, and we'll stuff those L bucks. L's I am saving up for my leather jacket. I'm going to need quite a few L bucks, but they're the most common. So I put kind of an audacious goal behind it. And it'll take a while to get there, but every dollar helps. So L's for leather jacket, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them this week, plus it looks like there is $72 already in here. Each full letter has 15 lines in it, so that's 15, 30, 45, 60, and then almost to the top here, there's another 12, so that's 72, 73. So this should make 77, but we'll count it anyway. So 15, 30, 45, 60. Stack these on top. 61, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 71, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. That matches up exactly. So I am going to stuff these back in here, and then we'll wrap it up in just a moment. So another week is in the books, and this one was a humdinger. The emergency that happened kind of came out of nowhere, as emergencies do, and I think doing this process or being accountable to my budget makes me more deliberate with what I'm doing. And I picked November as a start month on purpose because November is a tricky month. There's holidays. It's right before the Christmas holidays. And the end of the year is always just really busy professionally and personally. So I thought, well, if I can make this work in November, then I can handle any other month of the year. And sure enough, an emergency happened. And it wasn't just that I was prepared for it, but with the amount of money that I spent, I'm already thinking about, okay, how am I going to cover that? I've taken it out of my Roth IRA, and that decision was made. And so now it's a matter of how am I going to get the Roth IRA to where it needs to be? Do I have a really lean December with the holidays going on? Or do I push my target date to be fully funded out into next year, which is not something that I wanted to do. But the reality of the situation is that's where I am. So we'll see what happens next week and as we get into December, but I at least feel better that I've got a plan rather than just having this kind of hanging over my head that, okay, I spent all this money and now what am I going to do about it? So if you want to see how I cover that and how the end of the year finishes up, then please subscribe. I do want to thank you for spending time with me today, and a special thank you for getting all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and again subscribe if you're new, leave a comment down below, and share with your friends. If you're interested in any of the Ready Budget Go products that I used today, whether it's the worksheets or the Letterbucks trackers or anything like that, a link to my Etsy shop is down in the description below. Until I see you again next time, take care.